I want to echo something Mr. Gebhardt said. It is something I have felt strongly all my life. We must stop the politics of personal destruction.
One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego. Or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire.
Back and we are live, feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Off the Yanchek, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. All right. I was working on things today, and, oops. The show's over. Oh, I forgot that I got it on CD. Until I can get my computer fixed, I got to put the songs and stuff on the CD. So I've been working on things, and I'm trying to isolate all these electronics to get the hum going out of the way. And I went back and listened to some old videos, and I had the noise in there. So I guess as I fine-tune the equipment and it gets better as far as reproduction, I get to hear all the mistakes and stuff in the press. So anyway, I'm working on it. If I was to turn off, let me turn this off just for a heck of it, a little behind the scenes here. Here's the noise you would hear if I didn't have the compression and the noise gate going. Hear that? That's the buzz that's coming on here from having some kind of ground loop somewhere. And I'm telling you, it's like trying to find the elusive butterfly. Well, I shouldn't say that. The elusive spider, or I don't know, whatever, scorpion or something like that. But anyway, I found a way to, make it work so we don't buzz ourselves to death. And yet I can still do this. I also want to mention a couple of things. I've been listening to some shows, just YouTube stuff, and I've been seeing some programs from people I've never seen before and all that. And one of the things that bothered me about the show was there was kind of like, hey, look at me, I'm doing the show going on, and I hope I don't sound like or do that. And I was thinking about some of the personal stuff I'm talking about, like doing the equipment here, and I hope it doesn't come across as being some kind of a narcissistic self-aggrandizement. Actually, it's be self-effacing in this case because I'm incompetent after 17 years and not have hum in this stuff. But, I don't know. Tell me if you think that, what you think about that. Do you want to have like a personal touch and, hey, what's going on? I used to like listening to Art Bell a lot when I was younger, and he would talk when I was younger. I just had this thought for a minute. I guess it was a while ago. But he would talk about things going on and putting up his ham radios, and I don't know, I found it interesting. But then a lot of people were talking on these shows. I don't find that interesting at all, so I don't want to be a hypocrite on that. So also I want to bring up, get right into the stack here. I just happened to see this before I went on the air, shared by Trisha Daniel, excuse me. Lawmakers want a final say on the Air Force One paint job. I mean, these guys got nothing to do, that they're going to try and pass a law to talk about how the paint job would be on the plane. I mean, don't you got a life? Don't you have something to deal with? Like, I don't know, an invasion of 100,000 people a month? Illnesses? Crime? Gosh. I just can't believe it. All right. You got Kelvin here. He's usually on the road at this time, and he's listening live now, so hi to him. A fellow truck driver, by golly. 10-10 on the side. I don't know any of that stuff, so I can't start to pretend to be like it. I drive a truck, but I'm not into the whole lifestyle, I guess. But anyway, they're trying to paint. They're going to pass laws to restrict the president. Now, are they obsessed with Trump or what? Are they obsessed with him to that point that they're going to, well, I don't know what he's going to paint. What's he going to put, a nude woman on there or something? No, I know. They probably would want I was going to say a new child. But I don't know. I just thought these people need to get a freaking life. Now, I've been going through a lot of Buck Owens. I know, I'm 50 years out of date here, but I never listened to him back in the day. And when I I stumbled in. I knew Tiger by the Tail. That was a long time ago. But I stumbled into his stuff. Fantastic stuff. He's like the Beatles of country music. And I've been really getting into it. Lucinda found a CD that they didn't release. They, at the end of their career, even though he had 1 million #1 hits, the record company drops them. And they found that in his vault, and they released it. It's great stuff. I wish I could play it. Like opening songs from it. Oh, by the way, the opening songs today was from Floor 13, which is a local band. I'm going through all my CDs and ripping them, and I found this one, and I had to do some work to find out who it was for the titles and all that, and it turns out it's a local band, and I heard that back in 1999 is when that came out, so it seemed fitting what's going on today. So Buck Owens, Buck Owens. I'm digging the Buckaroos. I'm digging it. Looked them up on the video and saw some of the old stuff. I love it. It's fun. I'm laughing. I'm having a good old time, which is good. I also posted. I recommended that people should get ProtonMail.com. Now I'm not affiliated with them, and nothing is perfect, but their shtickle is security, and they're waving this is Switzerland, and we're a privacy flag around. And while, of course, as Richard Allen Miller commented, that it's a military project and all, the claim of Proton Mail is that they do not have the keys to read your stuff. When it's on your server, when it's on their server and sent to you, it is the person sending it to you, if they're using Proton Mail, because if it comes in from another mail source, once it hits Proton, it's private. But prior to that, they can't speak for. But if you send and receive via Proton Mail through browser or the app on your phone, they say that they're not even able to read it. It's complete privacy through and through. But, of course, I mentioned that if anybody has any kind of keyloggers on their phone or computers, that overrules everything, because when you're typing the information, or if there's somehow a screen scanner when it can scan the text on your screen, well, and that's the problem with a lot of computers and phones and whatnot, is they have it hacked, whether it be the Big Brother hack, the big the fascism in the tech sector, or if it's some a freelancer, if you will. Once they can see your screen and or copy your typing, it doesn't matter what kind of encryption you have on it. And then you can always toss the James McKinney bombshell in about how it's easier now to break the code with the prime numbers. So, but my point really is to get it out of Google, Yahoo. Well, I can't speak for Yahoo, but I'm assuming they're going to be in the same ballgame. Microsoft and all that. At Facebook, I don't want to put nothing in Facebook what I put in Facebook, I'm willing to put on my front lawn, or publish in a newspaper, because it's and I'm only using Facebook to keep in touch with people with the show or some family and friends. But I have moved over to Minds, which, again, it's proprietary. And they claim they don't read anything and they don't sell your data. So, it's their claims. And Gab as well. But, feedtothefireradio.com will have all the information. The shows are posted afterwards. But you can go to feedtothefireradio.com, hit the audio button. You can hit the video, but then you'll see access to the recent shows. The audio button will give you live as well as recent shows. And you can always do that and not even have to go Facebook or anything else. You can go, and that right now, anyway, that service is on my own server. So, my brother's. So that's not, public. But, again, I think the step we all could do is go to Proton. It's free. You can get a fancy setup if you'd like. Yeah, well, that's good. One of the things I was going to mention was, actually, Kelvin kind of reminded me, one of the things I wanted to mention was, I don't know why people tune in if they're coming in to hear news, I mean, I'm behind the times with news because I'm only once a week and it's all over the place and I don't get to everything. But I'm assuming, and Kelvin said that this is the case, that people are tuning in to hear my views or my commentary, which is humbling and it's cool. And all I want to do is share what I'm thinking. It doesn't mean what I'm thinking is some kind of a bombshell, wizardry from beyond. But I do have an analytical ability to kind of sniff out BS or kind of have a sniff, kind of catch some, hey, let me look into this. And all I'm doing is sharing what I have, and then you can do what you want with it. So that's why I do this. And if we're all on that page, fine. Because I used to do a show, if you go back and look at the archives. And by the way, if you want access to everything I've ever done, send me an email. I'll send you the link in it. I just don't want to post it publicly yet because it goes to a Google Drive. I think it's all free, but I don't know how that works putting it public. I don't know if it'll just be sucked away. I don't know how all that works. I mean, I'm technically inclined as much as I know what I'm doing. It's like being familiar with a section of the city, and then you're dropped in an area you don't know. You could be, 2 blocks from what you do know, but since you've never been in that area, you don't know. And that's how I am when it comes to a lot of this. And I use logic and lack of contradiction to wade out into the waters that I'm not familiar with, because those things are universal. And that's why when I'm going to Proton, for example, I'm saying that, yeah, I know anybody, if they want you bad enough, they can get you. The question is, are you worth it? I mean, that's what I look at. If they wanted to, they can get your car. You can have the fancy alarm on it, and if they want your car, they can come by with a big magnet sticking on the top and pull it away in a helicopter. But the question is, are you that important? Is your car that valuable, or the information in it that they would take the risk and the expense of it? And for most of us, the case is no. And a lot of, I think, if I may be frank, a lot of the personalities on YouTube or internet tend to use any kind of hassles they get as a boost to their ego. Like, well, see, this is why the show is so important that they're doing this to me. I know they're doing stuff to people, So it's not that it's not happening. It's just that, I get all kind of... I kind of look at the messenger along with the message, and that kind of affects the message. I guess it shouldn't. And in some ways, I look around and over people's problems, because we're all sinners. We all have problems, right? So I'm not going to throw out the whole message, but I'm going to keep it in mind. So if we're dealing with commentary or perhaps selective editing on what's one talking about, you got to see where it's coming from. That's why I like to listen to a lot of sources. So if you're going to try and find out what reality is, there is no one person who knows that. I mean, even ones who are really trying hard, because we're all limited. Everyone's limited. So if they're trying hard, let me get some drink here. They know that they're only can do so good. Oops, that hum comes back. Whenever I talk soft, you can hear the hum. So I try to, we all should give each other grace, realizing that we all have problems, and then, look to the heart. And if somebody's really trying and some things get in the way, that's fine. You just kind of learn to step around those and do what you're going to do. I have a post that I got. Most of the stuff I get from people. I find stuff too, but, for my time, I'm relying on a lot of the listeners and friends to be passing on information, which I glean through, kind of comb through, and certain things stick out, and I pass them along through my pipeline, and some I talk about. There's a research about methane emissions from livestock have no detectable effect on the climate. Now, I'm not a climatologist or a scientist. I dropped out of college. I went to college with math and science, and all through high school and grammar school and high school, all math, science stuff, scoring high. Went into college. I just hated school. I hated school. Learned I have some kind of an ADD, ADHD, or I don't know what the difference is between them, something like that, plus a little touch of dyslexia, which, of course, would make school a little much of a drag. But luckily, I was smart enough that I could pick up things pretty quickly. And you'll notice people who do have some dyslexia-type stuff, they're going to be good with their eyes and ears and quick on their feet because they have to be, because they can't sit and read stuff over and over again. So I was able to get through things, but one time I got to college, it was just like I was just so aggravated with all of it, I just quit. But I do have this idea of knowledge of science. Back when I went to school, all the way to grammar school even, they actually taught you stuff up and through college. It wasn't theoretical, socially based junk yet. You know, it was in the 70s when I went on to college. So, and then keeping up along the way, and with the internet coming around, allowing people to be able to search and find different things, it's pretty good. Pretty good. And the problem, you know, when you get into the whole climate change, first off, there's a whole political thing, and if you look behind it, there's taxes involved, and there's people who have been pushing their tax systems and all that. So that's a whole thing there that completely contaminates the water. And they use that, they project it onto the people who are saying there's a problem with the climate change or global warming because those people are being paid by the fossil fuel industry. See, so they just turn around and take the contamination that they have and they project it onto you. Very common what's going on here. They're projecting these things onto Trump when it's them and so on. So nothing new under the sun, as a preacher once said in Ecclesiastes. So this has been going on all the way back to the good old Greek days when you get into the trivium and the red herrings and all the aspects about that. Excuse the coughing. I got an itchy throat here. So if you want a little piece of my mind, you know, forgetting all of the politics even, when you look at the climate model, now this is very simple logic. You turn on the TV to find out what the weather's going to be on Saturday. It's Monday, it's Saturday. Hey, you're going to go out on a motorcycle. You're going to go out doing whatever. You know, you're going to go out grilling. You're going by grandma's, whatever. So what's the weather going to be like? And so you see the forecast for Saturday. Now Saturday comes, and it's completely different. I mean, not only a little off. I mean, number of times I looked for, okay, completely sunny, nice, great, good day for a ride with the bike. Come Saturday, it's raining. Now, if they can't predict the weather 5 days in advance on a regular basis, how are they going to predict the climate years in advance? The entire climate system, which is not even like looking at the weather. And now another thing. When you're going to predict the climate of the whole planet, and you have people who are arguing about even what makes the climate work. I mean, you have James McKinney's work with Electric Universe. I mean, he's not the only one. We talk about the electrically driven storms and all these things, and ionized air moving around. And then you look at the climate models from meteorologists, and they're talking about just flows. You know, the hurricanes are because of picking up moisture in the air. You know, McKinney's model, which works perfectly about the particle flows that create these flow. I mean, and they can't even agree on these things, right? Because, of course, it's political because some independent guy like McKinney come up with an answer to something that all these brainiacs for the last 100 years haven't figured out. So, of course, it can't be right. So now you're looking at climate change, and you're going to say, how are you going to measure the entire world temperature to get an average? Now, if you think about that feat alone, what's the average temperature of the Earth? Well, we have 10 stations around the Earth, and they're all in the they're all at 90 degrees latitude. Well, it's going to be hot. Well, you got a hot planet. Or if you have it at 20 degrees latitude, man, it's got a cold planet. So you're going to, how many do you put where and how? So if you have to have thousands and thousands of them spread out where you think would be the average places to add them together And then you're going to have to wait more than others because we got more here. I mean, do you see how complicated that is? And then people turn around and look at Mars and go, well, Mars is global warming. Well, how do you check Mars' temperature? Well, you look at it with a telescope, and you look in the thermal infrared, and you can see the temperature warming. I mean, wait a minute. That's one point. You're going to talk about the whole planet to that point, and they can't even measure it here? And what do you got to send out? A sensor to go out to Mars to look at Earth to get the temperature? And see how complicated it is? And then they turn around with these models. Einstein did one thing. Einstein is the bridge between the reality-based science and theoretical science. And we're into the theoretical science where we can build a model to say whatever we want. And if it's politically expedient and you're a scientist, let's go back to the cast times of castles and kings. If you're a scientist, you got to get underwritten by one of these kings. So there's going to be catch to how you're hired. In the case of musicians, Bach, he wrote how many things because he was hired to write a mass every week. So he's got his bread and his drink, writing the sermons, and then he could also do stuff on his own. Well, if you're a scientist, you can't write, I guess some could. I can't say that 100%, but you can't write church services. You got to give science. Well, so you're going to have a king who's like science. And then what if he has a preference? Anyway, so, nothing's new today. You see how it goes back to the same kind of deal? So when they come up with the climate model based on a model that's in a computer, that they're going to take the entire complex system in the Earth that no one totally understands, make it into a model, add into it a finite amount of data, push a button and have it come out and tell you these things, you're asking a lot. You're asking a lot. When they're talking about landing a craft on the moon, they're at least dealing with gravity, which is a universal constant based on mass and whatnot. So they could come up with idea. Of course, I know some people say the moon is hollow, but the effect of the moon is measurable, regardless of what's inside. And so when you want to fly a plane, while it's complicated, you have some finite things to deal with there that you can work on. The climate, they're trying to say that by putting, a very small amount of CO2 ends up bouncing the thermal energy back to Earth, thus causing the global warming as it was originally, and the greenhouse effects, which is where this methane comes from. And yet, a simple experiment. It's daytime. It's 80 degrees. The sun is out. It's nighttime. It's 65 degrees. The sun's not there. Well, it seemed to cool off a little bit without the sun. So when you have these actions and you're trying to say it's because there's this micromethane in the air that causes this stuff, and then you go back into the ice cores to come up with, there's a lot of CO2 back then and there's more now. And this model talks about, this thing talks about how actually CO2 rising in the air is beneficial for humanity. All right, I'm going to cough. Here, I'll do it. I'll save you the share it. There, I took a real big one, real big cough. More CO2 in the air, the plants grow faster and bigger, suck the CO2 up, release more oxygen. Now, pollution's a different story, but they're talking about CO2. They're talking about CO2, not CO, not hydrocarbons. They're talking CO. CO comes from animals like us. And the plants like the CO, and they give off oxygen. It's called the reason why there's life on this planet. Creation. It was created this way for a reason. We'll put it that way. And so this is why I can't stand the climatologists, and they call climate deniers. Now, here's a little thing. If somebody calls you a blank denier, that means you're onto something. whether it be the Holocaust, because there are anomalies in how it's been politicized, you look into it, you're a Holocaust denier. You're a hater. You hate Jews. No, that's not doing it. I want to know truth. I don't care what it is. You want to talk about the climate, you're a climate denier. I don't know what you hate life? I don't know what the word is. You try to go against abortion. You are hating the freedom of women's and hating, you want women to die in the back corner alleys. No, I didn't know abortion was mandatory. So that if you don't get it a certain way, then you go, do it another way. I mean, we're never going to solve problems because we have people who don't want to solve the problem. They want it their way. And therefore, it's never going to be solved. So whenever you see the word denier in there, you know that's total social programming garbage. And they're doing it to try and that the people around you hear this. They want to make sure, well, I don't want them listening to him. They might get ideas. So we have to call you hateful and a denier and hate speech. By the way, I've asked people to help me out on this. As far as I know, I can't find any place where I can search Supreme Court database. But back in the 70s, being in Chicago, there was a case that went to Supreme Court when the neo-Nazis wanted to march in a predominantly Jewish area. Now, I think it's a dumb thing. I think they were wrong, but the Supreme Court came back and said you have a right for speech, a right for hate speech or unpleasant speech or unpopular speech. That right is more important. That's when the right really gets asserted. So even if somebody come up and said something hateful, I mean literally, not this blanket climate denier, hater, political weaponry, but if they actually said something like the original neo-Nazis were doing, they just hated Jews. You can do that. Now, what we as a society should do is go like, you have a right to say something. I have a right to not listen. So the neo-Nazis have their rally, and a handful of people show up. What the left will say is, well, wait a minute, you might find some nutzos in themselves, and you might end up turning them, radicalizing them by doing this kind of thing. So we got to stop it from happening. Reason why they know how that does work is because that's exactly what they do. In their speech, it's designed to radicalize people their way. So they're projecting onto the white supremacists. They're the very small number of them. They're projecting this onto them because they know it works. That's how they do their people. So they're going to stop the other ones. But those extremes are so small. When you see big, giant groups of neo-Nazis anymore, I mentioned the thing happening in Chicago back in the 70s. And that still was 100 guys. I don't know how many people were in that. I mean, it was. I went because the rally was near me. I went out of curiosity to see what's going on because I couldn't imagine somebody wanting to be a Nazi. It was ridiculous to me. So we went to the rally, and me and a friend of mine, and we saw these huge police wagons ready to arrest people. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to know that much. But what I did see there was only a handful of the brown shirts. The rest were people who were, curious, like looking at a car wreck curious, or, mad about it or whatever. So to me, the whole thing is let the white racist or black racist or whatever, let them say their piece, because if you are seeking to follow constitutional law and so forth, you can't prevent somebody from doing their seeking their peace and creativity or whatever. You can't stop them. But because the free thinking, the logical, analytical approach, rather than the emotional approach, can cause someone to see through the BS. Of course, we got to suppress it, which is happening all over I segmented out all of this out of the climate change. But another thing you'll see is in the Constitution, the government cannot stop free speech. All right, so if you were to go out on a free corner, and start to talk, they can't stop you. Now they have infringed, and I think if it ever went to court, it would be would be challenged. They have created free speech zones. That's not what it's supposed to be. They have created, you get the permits, and you have to. There's some limitations that people have done that we have put up with. But one way to limit free speech is get the free speech into the private sector. For example, you go to work and you want to stand up in the lunchroom on your free time, quote unquote, and start saying your piece, you can be told to stop or be fired. That's legal because it's not a free area. It's not your time, even if it's your break time. It's not your place to stand up and do it, which is why for many years people have been restricted in their speech at work, and no one is really bothered with it. What's happening now, using the same example, is now the work is projecting onto the worker political and views that are non-work related. Like if you're making widgets, got nothing to do with making widgets, it's getting political, socio-political, and enforcing the people to behave a certain way outside of the auspices of the work they're doing. And likewise, in the Facebook and Google and all that, because it's a private sector, they are limiting what people can say in there. If you want to join our group, then you have to follow our rules, and our rules will say we're going to tell you not to do this. Now, the flaw in that, of course, is because if they are a private sector, then they can be sued for for their content, which they are not, or they have a special law for that. So that should be rescinded, or they should act as a non-bias group only following the law. For example, you can't post, child porn or something like that. It's against the law, so of course they can do something about it because they're following the law. But if I write a post saying this person's a jerk, they can't be sued for it for allowing me to harass somebody because it's a public forum. And I could walk out on the street and harass somebody, and then the law responds to it. So that's how it should be. Now, they're having it at both ends. But the goal is the programming. And, you can see that if you want to look at the Republicans and Democrats, Republicans aren't doing much about it. Because they kind of like the programming, too, from a certain perspective. So this is the problem with what's going on, is you're having a private sector do your programming and your censoring. And that, simply put, is fascism in a textbook style. So the fascists are calling the people who want to follow a constitutional government fascists. And this is the upside-down, topsy-turvy world. Bizarro world, I guess it was in Seinfeld. Superman or something like that. So, moving on to the golf. Several memes I've passed through. They lied about the Lusitania to start World War I. They lied about the Gulf of Tonkin to start Vietnam War. They lied about Saddam's WMD to start Iraq War. They lied about chemical attacks to bomb Syria. Do they really expect us to fall for the same thing with Iran? Well, I hope not. And one of the things that's good at this point is because even with the suppression that we have in the media, social media, the internet, a lot still gets out there. Like these memes, for example. Technically, there's nothing wrong with these memes in terms of service having to do with, there's no hate speech in there. There's, so it's hard to censor some of these things. And hopefully, because they didn't really succeed in Syria. When they had the bombings and the chemical attacks in Syria, the military-industrial complex, they wanted to run in there. Trump said no. He did bomb an abandoned facility with an hour's, I think it was an hour warning to Russia and Syria to make sure no one was there. And then he made this big huff and puff. See, we showed them, we're not going to allow that kind of stuff. So to me, I think he did it to limit what they wanted to do in Syria, which, if you look in the long term now, things are relaxing in Syria. So I'm hoping that in this whole Gulf thing, it's ridiculous. I mean, look at the logic. You got to talk about logic. So you're saying to me that the Iraqi are going to attack a non-combatant Japan boat for why? And what possible? We're going to show them what? There's no, if it was an attack on the U.S., then they would say okay. But then we look back in history, look at the Gulf of Tonkin, and they didn't mention in this meme about what was the name of the boat? When Israel attacked the boat, tried to sink it, Liberty, USS Liberty. They didn't mention that in there about this, but that didn't work. They tried to blame Egypt, but the boat was still there, and had people testifying about it. And then it had to just kind of go off in the quietness, just like the Syrian stuff kind of just drifted away because a lot of the evidence started to come up that it wasn't a gas attack from the president of Syria's people. So then, okay, we'll just let that drift away and get quiet because it's not going to work for us. Well, this could be the same deal. If it doesn't work, then, and I love this one. I passed this one along. Mike Pompeo said April 15, 2019, it was the CIA director. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole, like we had an entire training courses. And then on June 13, 2019, the Islamic Republic of Iran was responsible for the attacks of the Gulf of Oman today. So the last thing I would listen to would be the CIA. The intelligence community has been compromised so bad for so many years that we need evidence. Just like they said, remember all the 17 organizations talked about it was Russia who hacked the server, even though the evidence, actually no one had got a chance to actually look at the server, which is ridiculous. We had someone look at it and they said, this is what happened. Oh, FBI goes, oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, see if that works for you someday when you're doing it. So, no belief here. Excuse me, I got a cough again. I don't know what this deal is here. I got a lot of phlegm. Excuse me. One American News Network, I've been talking about them for a while, and they've been putting out some of their news stories on YouTube. So far, they haven't been, I'm aware of, they haven't been deleted. But they're mentioning about how the southern border, there's been a blackout of ISIS being at the southern border and many other things. To me, it's ridiculous. You have border guards all over the world guarding the borders. I mean, it's like this has been going on since the beginning of time, since there were borders to guard. And right now there should be people at the border. You should have the military at the border. If the military's job is anything legitimate, rather than trying to hope they can catch Iran doing something or make it up, they should be at the borders. It's so obvious. And yet that's hateful speech. Now, another very important thing, we're witnessing the end of reality, okay? I mean, it's anyway. I saw this article, I posted it. It was shared by Headlines with a Voice. And the Max Planck Institute in Princeton University and Adobe Research have come up with an ability to take a video, type in the text they want the person to say. It will analyze the video and the nuances and how the person talks, and especially if they're saying words or phonetics. And it will use that, and it will actually put words in there, plus smooth the face expressions over so that it's seamless. It's like, why would someone need to do that? I mean, it'd be interesting if you wanted to do a Humphrey Bogart movie, or something like that, and you wanted to put in text to have him appear in your movie briefly. I mean, there's some novelty items on that. If you wanted to have an education and have, like, I don't know, Lincoln talking. But then again, the political abuse is there. The only reason they do something like this would be for political or legal abuse. Yeah, we have films of you, looking in the window or something. And it's ridiculous. It's got links. I'll put these links afterwards like I usually do. And it's just ridiculous of what these things are going on. There's also a lot of things that I've been commenting on is people have this need to have actors support President Trump. I mean, there's this desire they want to. So they're literally making up stuff. Somebody's making up stuff. There's people out there who love to make up things and see if people will believe it. And I don't get that. That's been around since the beginning of dealing with message bases. There's just the desire. I mean, it went through all of the Art Bell stuff and all that, where people come up with things and see if they can get you to believe them. And so they have have quotes from John Lennon, Kurt Cobain, that never said it. In fact, the words are so similar that if you see one, you see the other one. The Lennon one's actually dated after his death. They have, I'm seeing his face now, so I can't remember one black actor from Equalizer, Book of Eli. I can't think of his name now, because, of course, I see his face, and my brain is incapable of saying a name when you're thinking of a face. So, I mean, they got quotes from him. I've had to go show it that never happened. Well, John Voight has come out for pro-Trump. So if you want to have an actor who's talking about Trump, there you got John Voight. You can quote him. There's other ones. Chachi. I don't know. Maybe you want somebody of a certain caliber. Maybe John Voight's too old. Chachi is too bubblegum. I don't know what the word is. But John Voight has put out on his own an official pro-Trump speech. So there you go. Now you can, you got somebody from the, of course, then there's James, of course, now James Woods. I saw his face there, but I got the James part out before I saw his face in my head. James Wood has been completely pro-Trump. In fact, he's been banned from Twitter. I think he still is, because he wouldn't take down a tweet, which was ridiculous. So, I don't know. I don't have this desire to find somebody who's going to champion Trump. It doesn't matter, and especially when you're dealing with extremely liberal, which is extremely emotional, which is extremely non-thinking, which is extremely follow-the-leader-ish stuff like in Hollywood. You're not going to get it. Now, this might seem like a big deal, but this is actually an old news story. It got new life because of stuff, but back in 2008, I think, there was a major fire which burned a lot of audio recordings, master tapes from many, many, many bands and artists going back to the 30s. And so they've already digitized a lot of them, so it's not like they're not there anymore. It's just that with better digital processes, they've been going back resampling stuff at a higher rate. DSD, I think, is a much better system. And so that's going to be thwarted now because, those are burned. But here's the problem, why this happened. And here's the quote that I quoted from it. Today, most commercial recordings from the past century and beyond are controlled by only 3 giant record companies: Sony Music Entertainment, Warner Music Group, and Universal Music Group. So you got all of these recordings throughout all of history are in 3 hands. And that is why when one of them has a major fire, you take a huge chunk of history is gone. One of the problems with centralizing things. Well, this is old news now. A guy was fired from Pinterest for being a whistleblower about how they censor. They took a Right to Life website and put them in the porn censor category so that people couldn't use Pinterest to make pins. I don't do any of that stuff, so I don't even, I didn't know. But I was just talking about how these guys are actually censoring. So Right to Life website is put in the porn category. They responded by saying, well, we didn't have other topical categories to put them in. So you put them in the porn for convenience, but it's like, okay, why are you censoring them anyway? Oh, there we go. Let me scroll. So James O'Keefe done a lot of stuff, and kudos to what he's doing. He's doing he beat a rap. He beat a lawsuit of somebody trying to personally sue him, and the judge brought up, what if this was Mike Wallace? And he used to do all that kind of stuff, and it's good. There's some judges that have a brain, and are not just politically motivated. Now this is important. We talked about earlier about like Facebook not letting you post because you don't agree with their politics. All right. Well, that's one thing. All right, that's inconvenience. That's bad. There's all kinds of stuff. But now we're getting into some real heavy stuff where Chase is withdrawing services to conservative businesses. So you have now the banking community who has no soul whatsoever and would back any business that would be legal and make money is now getting into the censorship area. Now, they're not doing it because they got a soul. Because if anybody has sold their soul, the longest in history, it would be in the banking money, the money changers. Okay, here we go. So now they're starting to get involved, and this is what they're going to. PayPal's already deplatformed people, and the law should state that if you're going to do business and it's legal, they can't stop it. Now they could say you're a risk. They can, because I won't lend to you because you owe too much money. Those things are acceptable in terms of doing business. Not, I don't like your political position. It's just moving on. It's ridiculous, and this is some of the things that it's going on. It's like I don't know. I want to comment on it like this. And I don't know if it's because you're listening to hear me comment on it. I say that, and go, oh, good, I thought I was going crazy. He thinks that too. And actually, that's a valid point to that. We need to hear it from each other because it's so ridiculous. The whole idea about having men go into women's bathrooms because they feel like a woman today is so ridiculous that what got me started, really, at coming politically awake, because I thought all the stuff, politics was all a bunch of garbage, right? But what really got me was when in the Obama administration, when I heard the news story that he wrote executive order but to allow to have transgenders going into the other bathrooms, whatever. And I'm like, I was like, I remember I was reading something probably on a computer because that's like my newspaper, and I heard it. I went, what? What? No one's going to sit still for that. You're going to have guys going into women's bathrooms? That's not going to happen. And it did. It not only happened, but the local store was worried about, they already got some phone calls from political activists, no doubt, wanting to know about what they've done about this rule of changing the bathrooms. And that's when I went, wait a minute, hold on, something's wrong. That's what got me awake. And when I hate the term awake because everyone's asleep, and the people who say they're awake are just a different way of sleeping. We're all in levels of waking, if you want to say that. So to say I'm awake, it's ridiculous, and to claim someone else, I don't get into any of that. But that's what shocked me out of my, and I got more involved in it, and that's, of course, the whole Trump thing. When Trump ran and won the nomination, I was like, what? And I looked into it, and I saw his plans. I go, hey, it's stuff, good stuff. And saw how he was being trashed and lied about, and here I am, politically wise, because I was just looking into stuff. Well, here's another thing. It's okay to have a mother allow her kid to go be the drag kid, perform at gay bars for tips. But if you are the parent who is trying to instruct their child about how to not be trans in gay bars, then you are. then you get arrested or you get whatever, kid taken away from you. It's another like, what? Oh, huh? And so the whole idea of kids not being responsible for their actions until they're older, which is the oldest of hills, goes back to thousands of years throughout society. The kids had to be trained how to handle the world before they can go out, quote, on their own, unquote. Rite of passage and whatnot through cultures. And now it's like okay to teach a kid about being transgender. Huh? If this becomes hate speech to say what I just said, then so be it. There's no way I'm drawing a line on it. I can understand. I don't care if somebody's gay or trans. It doesn't matter to me. To me, I think the systems are laid out in nature, and there's reasons for it, and there's a price to pay. And I'm not talking about judgment of God. To me, God doesn't get involved in throwing lightning bolts at people. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, the reason why these certain things are wrong is because they lead to harm. And if you want to do it and find out for yourself, go ahead. Getting your fingers burned is a very good way to learn about fire. But so to me, it's like people want to do what they're going to do, fine. It's when they push it on someone else. It's the opposite. People say, well, you're trying to say people shouldn't be gay. Well, I'm not. I don't care. All right, my opinion on how my worldview and my theology and my physics and my physiology and all that, I have a certain way of looking at things, and I'll explain it to someone. And I have a right to hold it, but I don't care what you do. You just don't push it on me or my kids or people who don't want it. That's what the problem is. It's the reverse. People were claiming they were being heterosexuality is being pushed on them. Well, now it's the way around, and that's okay. It's okay to have black or some ethnic minority racism against whites. That's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay to have the scale tipped and now dump on the other side. So if obviously there were Jim Crow laws, and obviously blacks were oppressed in the particularly in the South in the past, obviously, and that's been righted. It's in the process of writing. It still is. It's being righted. Doesn't mean it's okay to go the other way. But this is the problem. It's that what we're talking about is like, wait, this doesn't make sense. This is not right. You see, we're missing the point. The people promoting this stuff are not saying it's right. They're using it as a weapon to gain political power, economic power, to gain power in the music industry or the entertainment industry. It's a power wedge. It's got nothing to do with right. And we're looking at it and going like, well, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's an emotional ploy for power. That's it. There's nothing else to it. There's no, well, this is real or this is right and there's nothing to it. There's no thought involved. There's no logic. It's all about using a tool to oppress people, using a method to do it. Saul Alinsky and the other usual suspects throughout time, the Bolsheviks, the neo-Maoists, so now you got the neo-Maoists, you got the neo-Bolsheviks, neo-Soviets. They're all wrapped in all in America style, using the same techniques that have been used before. And we're just sitting here going like, well, no, you can't do that. Now, when you have Taiwan, there are 1 million people out there protesting. Now, that's protest. You got the yellow vests out in France. That's protest. So I don't know. I'm like, in a way, I'm like Beale, going like, I don't know what to tell you to write your congressman, and all that, because they're not going to listen to you. I write them just for the hell of it. I write them for the tally books. So I get called on the carpet and say, what did you do? What did you do about this? Did you just sit and let it happen, or what did you do? I go, well, here's what I did. I mean, it might be lame. People did better than me, but I did something. And I figure if you have someone telling you you're wrong, that's wrong, and you are illegal or evil or whatever, you have someone saying that to somebody, that's something. Not to ourselves, not to each other, Don't get on Facebook and go like, yo, these are terrible in our little group. And we'll all go, yeah, this is terrible. Yeah, this is terrible. No. That's the point. Get you to call into a talk show, internet radio, write a post. This is wrong. And you get it out of your system and you do nothing in the real world about it. That's what they wanted to do. Now, what does each one of us do? Well, we all got to figure that out. But there'll come a time in our lives that we will be in a position specifically suited to do something at that moment. And it is my prayer and my actions that say I could do it when the time comes. Now, if I can present myself more usable to things, well, then more opportunities there, and that where I could be at fault. You know, having to work in all this, and the economic position I'm in, I got no time. And not an excuse. It's wrong. It's my fault. You know, whatever. You know, my fault plus fate or things that happen. You know, so I'm not trying to weasel out of it, but I admit it. I understand it, and I do what I can when I can. But someday, you're going to be called to make a stand somewhere. I mean, a hard stand. And that's going to be your shining time and your defining time in your consciousness. There's people coming forward now doing it. I mean, some people can look at Trump coming forward is that was his thing he could do. His conscience said, here's your choice, being a billionaire, being successful, his personality, being a bulldog. Now, he was in a position to do it, and he answered that position. I don't know this, but I'm just saying. So, but he was in a position to do something, being president and fight these guys. I can't do that. I would never get in that position, right? So it's not up to me. But I will be in a position, have been, will be, perhaps am, if I'm talking here, in a position to do something. And it's all you to say. Someday. It reminds me of The Godfather. Someday, and that day may come, I may call upon you to do a service. This is like God. The Godfather, saving our souls and going, someday, I'm going to call upon you to do a service because I've given you grace, and it's still grace, but here's your chance to give an offering back in return. And so, it might be sir, it might end up some kid getting attacked, you break in, the kid runs away, and they kill you. Okay. What greater gift someone can give their friend than lay down their life? What even more amazing gift that you can give a stranger just because it's a child, because it's a human being, and you lay down your life? Hey, we're going to die anyway. You might as well make it good. Just don't go in there with a bomb on your back or nothing. That's a whole different ballgame. That's coming from a whole 180 degrees. That's the ego, that's Satan, that's the whole 9 yards there. Trying to make it, I'm talking about protecting the innocent is always going to be. I remember watching a movie, who was that guy? The guy from Down Under, Crocodile Dundee. Though I don't think it was the same actor, but it wasn't Crocodile Dundee movie. He was some kind of a two-bit, kind of a con guy. He gets out of prison, and he's looking to do another heist or something, kind of low-level, no murderer or nothing, but he walks across the street, some kid going to get hit, he saves the kid and dies. Then he goes up to the pearly gates, and there is Charlton Heston, dressed up like Moses, being St. Peter. I think it was St. Peter. I don't think it was God. I think it was St. Peter, or maybe it was God. And he looked at it and stuff, go, all this stuff you've done, petty larceny, petty this and that. But what do? Your last day on earth, what do? You save a kid. I was like, all right, we got to do something. We'll give you another chance. And he went back as an angel. Not touched by an angel. Something like that. Goes back as an angel and helps people, to further his karma or whatever. And I thought that was funny. So, you could do something with God's grace and his reward system and his honoring people, what they do. You could do something toward the end of your life that can cover many sins. And I'm not talking about earning salvation. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm talking about this idea of, It's all by grace. But when it comes time to give something back, like somebody helps you out, doesn't ask for you, and then they need help, and you just go like, "Oh, I'm not going to do it." Oh yeah, he didn't ask you. He helped you free. He didn't say anything, but kind of nice to help him back, and it's help somebody. So pass it forward. I guess the deal is. So that's what I'm gonna here we cough again. That's what we're looking at here, is to have a situation where you're going to be in a position to try and help somebody, and you'll be able to make. It's not necessarily a, it's like I remember in The Godfather. It's funny to be looking at The Godfather, but he helps. This one guy comes to him because these kids raped his daughter and deformed her. He wanted to kill him, and Godfather says, "Yeah, but it's not fair. They're still alive." And he says, "We'll make them suffer as they suffered." And he says, "Yeah, you didn't come to me as a friend. You didn't have coffee. You didn't come to me with this. But now that you need something done, you come to me and ask to commit murder." And I'm thinking, boy, that sounds so much like almost like it's an amorphidation of God. You come to him because you need something done, not come to him in friendship. So then he turns around and he tells him, someday they may never come and you do a service upon me. So he's all worried about what's he going to ask him to do. And he's an undertaker. So all he wanted to do was when his Sonny got killed, he wanted him to make him look good. Put in a little extra work, do a good job. So he ends up being called to do what his job is anyway. So this is how I look at God. God is going to call us to do stuff that like we do anyway. I should say our position in our talents will be used for what's best. So, looking at some of these memes that have been pushed around, Democrats fake sexual assault to destroy Supreme Court nominee. Democrats fake the Russian collusion to destroy a president. They're the most corrupt party in history. Well, it's a party, but it's because the party got taken over by these individuals. These psychopaths are everywhere. They're in churches, they're in Republicans, they're in Democrats, they're in local groups, they're everywhere. So you can't look at out there and say, "Oh, it's them." No, it's everywhere. Psychopaths, that is the people who do not have empathy and think of themselves. I mean, a narcissist could be a psychopath. Partially, it's me. It's do as thou wilt. That is the problem. Those are the people who want what they want when they want it, and they look at you as means to get their ends, and to hell with how it affects you. That is evil. And that is, of course, what is most politicians, leaders, whether it's in churches, coughing again, whether it be in churches, whether it be anywhere, that's the problem. And our goal is to help one another and ourselves, but help one another. All right, I think I have covered everything. I really had an emotional time this weekend. I mean, this little dog passing has affected me so much, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense, but it's like, no, I think it touched something inside. There's some hurt and pain got released out of this. And last week I built a little wood urn for Charlie, to hold the urn, because it was just a little tin that came with it. I built it out of oak that I had, solid oak, and I stained, polyurethane it, put up a little picture, and it really got to me. I'm starting to get a little teary now about it. I don't know. It seemed like there's a lot of significance in it. It's like the death of innocence. The fact that we're alone on this planet, trying to have friends with one another, and it's how it's being used against us a lot of times. You want to be friends, then you got to do this evil thing, or you got to do this thing. You got to follow me. You got to say what I want you to say, or I won't be your friend. And then when somebody comes along, and here it is a little dog, like Less Visible said, man is trying to find his God. The dog has already found him. And that's gone. And it's sad. But there's probably more to it than that. It's all part of the times we're in. I mean, to me, it's whether it's me personally and my life is winding down, or as a culture we're winding down with all this stuff happening. Whether it be end times and all this prophecy and stuff happens. I mean, it just seems that we're coming to this end of the innocence, end of even the pretension of innocence. When you have people arguing and cheering for late-term abortion, now you've lost it. I mean, abortion is not something you should cheer for. It could be, in certain cases, would be necessary and unfortunate, and it's a somber, sad thing. I mean, it's like cutting off your leg. Enjoy it, but to sit and to have this, I don't know. It's just there is a death of innocence going on here, and the reason why I think the earth is because in my theology, God created the universe with a vibratory action, and the vibration is why it works. Right? Otherwise, it'd be nothing. And that is sustained by God. It's not a create and now it works without him. Like the deists of old thought that God created the earth and then went away, and it's up to us to take it over. And that's what deism is still alive today, even though you don't hear it as much. It's where these people are trying to live forever and rule the universe. God keeps the world, the earth, everything. It keeps the universe vibrating and working. In fact, you want to look at the work by Phil LaViolette. Some of his physics actually fits into that. I mean, this thing, where you have this vibratory action by God, keeping it alive. It's like God's breath is continuous, and as soon as he takes away the breath, it all just goes away because there's nothing here. This is nothing. Everything is here because of the intervention into nothingness by God. And I think if you want to look at Sodom and Gomorrah as an example, the intervention, it happens because of the innocence. The righteous people, I'm talking about not the arrogant righteous, it's the nice people. And there could be a small number of these people, and God will still deal with the arrogant evil that's around for the sake of these people. And at some point, you have this point where it's just too bad, and God may remove these people, whether they die in their sleep or whether they move to another, whatever. But to me, it looks like we have we're moving toward this death of the innocent to a point where things will start to unravel. I mean, they're already kind of unraveling. And I think one of the tests it's not political. It's, will the evil that's in the government be allowed to get away with it, or will the good people that are in government or in the citizenry not allow this to happen? If they win, if it allowed to happen, that could be. And it's not America centric because it's worldwide happening. But because there's a Christian population here, cowboy Christian, let's call him, who can get riled up in prayer and action, is here. Once that gets low enough, then I don't think there's nothing holding up the earth anymore. Atlas will have died. So maybe I'm picking up that possibility as well. There's like this whole thing. I'm somewhat of an empath. Maybe that's what I'm picking up here. It's kind of like everything's winding down. And it could have been so good, but the actions of evil are becoming overwhelming. We'll see. I mean, it's not over with yet. Things are still going. And that's why I give Trump slack, even though, I don't like what's going on in golf. I'm just hoping he won't do it. I don't like some of the stuff. I mean, to me, he should be putting the army on the border. But there's stuff going on. It's higher stuff going on. and he's a sinner like everyone else. I just think I can't do any better. No one else could do any better. I mean, you name one person who can step into Trump's shoes and do a better job, and I will say he has to get there first, and that weeds out everybody. I mean, I was a Ron Paul guy, and Ron Paul's been pretty critical of Trump, but he got laughed off the stage. He got pushed off the stage. Trump pushed everybody else off the stage. That's why I'm saying that. That's why I give him, I give him space. I give him grace on it because of there's no one else. I mean, we got him, and if he can't do it from his percentage with our help and with the people in the government's help, if it can't be done, then, we're hitting that time. Anyway, I'm going to call it a night here. I'm actually off tomorrow. My truck, it's low work. That's great. Even less money. I have to bring my truck in to get fixed. So there you go. But at least I have some time here. I don't have to rush off to bed, and I will set the show up for download. And I've talked to Richard Miller. We're going to do something. I mean, I'm hoping. I've just sent away for the pieces needed to cut out my BIOS. I've ordered another copy of the BIOS for $15 from guys who sent out BIOSes. I'm going to put in I'm going to cut out the chip. One chip, there's double BIOS, but one's a backup. I'm going to cut out the chip. I'm going to stick in a socket. I'm going to stick in the new BIOS. And then if it ever happens again, I could pop out the BIOS, put in a new one, and it's done, right? But in the old days, the BIOS chips used to be socketed, but now it's to the board. And then that should work. I do have a backup motherboard. It's the same motherboard. Let's just say I have a backup motherboard. I may put that in and then fix this one and then build another box for it that I could put away nicer, because this box I got works great, except it's huge. It's just absolutely huge. And now it's going for like $500. I didn't pay anywhere close to that. But I don't have all the original box. I don't have, missing pieces that I didn't use, so I can't turn around and sell it for that. But I'm looking at various ways to do all this stuff. So hopefully next week I will have the computer up running one way or the other. Maybe the week after as a safety valve, and we'll have Richard Miller, because I want to get him on audio, video, because he's a fun guy. He's a fun guy to watch and listen to. And so we'll get Richard Miller on. And so I'm working on it. And I appreciate any prayers and support. There's one guy out there. I was going to say his name. Let me see if I can find him. This guy does a really good job of Thomas Beach. That's his name on the boards. He's constantly sharing information from the show and all that. And I appreciate that. More people who listen, the more people can get help. Maybe I'll can get help from people. I mean, a long time ago, I started doing the show planning on doing it for a living. And I ran for 4 hours for year after year. I've had multiple guests, commercial times in between. I did the whole thing just like anybody could do it. But one, I'm not a good marketer of myself. And two, I also, I'm not, I very independent, and that doesn't, I'm not a team player as well. It's just, as we're talking, Dominic, is it Simesa? Excuse me if I pronounce it wrong, because I can't, it's not a normal word, so I'll miss it. But he shares a lot of stuff, too. I just happen to notice him. Well, I appreciate you guys out there doing that, spreading it around. I'm going to give you this right now. I should have done this earlier, but if you're still listening, I guess then you're probably more likely to want it. This Proton Mail I talked about, my Proton Mail address is jjanzik@protonmail.com. That's what I recommend using. I don't have it posted anywhere because, of course, it'll be read, and I'll start getting all kinds of garbage through there. Once I'm more familiar with their filtering process as far as spam, that will be the official email. Because I still have my original, which is James at Innersights, which is my server, which is technically supposed to be private because it's my own server. No one's on it but me. But the server company I'm at now, I had to kind of downsize and get a little cheaper, and it's been down a couple of times, and so I was trying to go with this. But James@innersights.com or James@feettothefireradio.com. That goes all into the same server bin, but the other one, which is JANCIK, Jancic, at protonmail.com, is, I have Gmail at jjancic@gmail. That's going to be switching all over there. Eventually, I want to just dump the whole Gmail. So that is that. Send me an email. Say what's on your mind. Comment. Talk about guests. Let me know what you think. Suggestions. Blah, blah, blah. Let me know if the buzz bothers you. I've had people write me and tell me this stuff. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I've had really some nice comments, but I'm doing what I can here. And we'll get it. We'll get it going. I'll get this buzz if it's the last thing I do. I can just see me. It'll be the buzz will get done, and then I'll die. But at least I'll have it taken care of, by golly. Not sticking with that crap. All right. Go to my CD changer. This is crazy that I'm playing a CD. Play the song, the music here. What a crazy thing. How do I do this? Doesn't work.
I want to echo something Mr.
We're going to have to skip
Gephardt
over
said.
these. Gosh, I'm telling you, it's like going backwards. I used to do this before. I recorded on a VHS tape, hi-fi VHS, and using CDs, and here I am just about back there. Will that circle be broken, I guess. All right, we'll see you again next week. Reach for the skies within, feet to the fire in year 17. Here we go.
The ancient one, oh, my old friend, the one who walked before, the one who walk again, the ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new. Revive our inner sight, retell your timeless truths. Oh, ancient one.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the ONSIG radio network of stations.
Did what I had to do, paid my dues, shook this dust from my shoes. Right there beside, I couldn't be denied. To myself I have lied, and I wonder, yes I wonder, what is the truth? I can't refuse what I was put here to do. My heart is like a child.